Hey guys, believe it or not, I actually just played a game with this exact position. The two bishops against the two knights. Now, it's not exactly a fair fight because my bishops are very active. I do have an extra pawn. And black's knights are terrible, right? Absolutely terrible. But this illustrates the dangers of the bishops on an open board, how powerful they can be, and why generally you don't want to just give up your bishops for knights for no reason, because you might find yourself in a situation just like this. So let's actually take a look at how we ended up here and then how I was able to finish off the game because of the power of these two bishops. So we had a Ponziani opening. Knight to f6 is one of the main moves, attacking the pawn here. When you play the Ponziani, you just ignore it. He captured here. I push forward. And now my opponent made a mistake with this knight. And this is something you guys should remember because this is pretty common. He moved the knight to e4. Now, you can play this way, but you have to know what you're doing and you have to be really careful because a lot of times when you move the knight to e4, it sometimes can get trapped because the pawn controls the retreat squares. Okay, and this is why you have to really watch out for this. I played queen e2, and my opponent didn't know the correct response and ended up getting into trouble after they tried to bring the knight around. You can see the engine is already giving that a blunder mark, right? It's that bad of a place for the knight to go. So what you're supposed to do here is actually sacrifice one of these pawns and allow the en passant, and then you defend with the other pawn. That's the best way to do it, believe it or not. Still very tricky, and you have to know what the follow-up is here. Otherwise, you can get into trouble because of the pin. So that is what you're supposed to do, but my opponent played here. And now when I recapture, this knight is actually terrible. Because if you go here, you have to worry about getting forked. Now, it's a little tricky if you hop the knight in, but it's still very good position for me. As an example, I could still play d5, and even if the knight hops in, I have queen to e4. This knight's getting chased around, even if you trade here. Where's the knight going to go? It's just not a good position for black, right? And so my opponent decided to go to a6, but again, the knight is just totally misplaced. And if you remember the snippet that I showed you earlier, this knight was still sitting on a6. I don't know how many moves later, but it never moved the entire game. And that is why, part of the reason why Stockfish is saying this is a really bad position for black already. Okay, so you have to be really careful with these knights, especially when you move forward to e4 if there's a pawn cutting off the retreat squares. All right, so keep that in mind. I played queen to e4. I want to let my bishop out so that I can castle if I need to this way. Also, the queen is controlling a lot of important central squares here, which is nice. Check, blocked with the knight. Queen to e7. Defending my queen because this knight is pinned, so my queen essentially was undefended in case there's some sort of tactics here with the pawns coming forward, so I wanted that to be defended. Also, if black tries to castle, you know what I'm going to play. Of course, there's a checkmate threat there. Okay. He plays d6. I played bishop g5, just trying to be aggressive here. f6. At f6, I don't think is a good move because it does allow me to just simply win a pawn here. Yes, he can force a queen trade, but I still have a pretty nice position here. He castles. I traded this, and he, instead of taking back right away, goes for the pin on my bishop. Now, it gets a little tricky here, but I have a nice move. I castled queenside to get out of the pin, and at the same time, get out of this pin. Okay? However, after bishop takes c3, I have to find a move here. What move should white play in this position? Well, if you had a chance to look at that, the knight was defending the bishop. And so if you simply recapture, you lose your bishop. Okay, so that was the kind of the tricky moment that I had to avoid. So the move here is bishop to d5, check, throwing in that little in-between move before I recapture. And if he plays bishop e6, again, I would trade and then recapture, and the game goes on. I have a pretty nice position. My opponent instead decided to now take the pawn with their king. So I recaptured. And then they played bishop to g4. And watch what happens on these next two moves. Rook comes over, and they traded the bishop for the knight. Now, there wasn't really a good reason to do that. And this is something that a lot of beginners do, right? They bring out their bishops, they trade for the knights, and they think, it's an even trade, 3 for 3. Really, it's not. And really, the bishops are slightly better. And if you do this, you can get into big trouble. And that's what we see here. Notice, look at how much of the board my bishops are covering. Let's look at this and this. Let's look at this one. Look at all these squares. They're controlling a lot of the board, right? I don't know if I missed any. I think I got most of them. Compared to the knights over here, the knight can't go there, can't go there, can't go there. You don't want to go there. This other knight can't go there. Get captured, can't go there, can't go there. Probably don't want to go there. You probably don't want to go there. Look at that. It's totally different, right? And this is the danger you can run into when you trade your bishops for your knights if you don't have a good reason. Okay, so please keep that in mind and be very careful. So watch what happens next. Knight here. And now I had this issue of I want to get control of the file, but I can't because black is there, right? You guys have seen this before many times. I'm sure the rooks are just kind of just sitting there. Bishop to h5. This is a really good nugget that you want to remember. When your opponent has a rook that they're not getting off of the file that you want to control, what you can do a lot of times is attack it with another piece, a low value piece, and now you force it to move. Because if black just leaves it there, what am I going to do? I'm going to take it. I'm going to get a bishop for a rook, right? Or a rook for a bishop, I should say. If he takes me, which is what happened in the game, I simply recapture, and guess what? Now I have control of the file. And the other option would be he could just move, but again, I still have control of the file. So however you look at it, I'm going to get control of the file, right? So keep this one in mind. It's a super simple thing to do, but a lot of people don't think about it, and it can really help you get that file control. Okay, great. The rook comes over. He's trying to defend, but really the bishops are just so powerful, right? So powerful. I invaded with the rook, and notice how the bishops are making this like wall, right? Like look at this. The king cannot cross. Bishops are amazing. Now you pair that with the rook. You can't go here because I just take it. Forces the king to the back rank. And if you would like to pause, what's the idea here to win the game? Well, if you had a chance to look at that, basically all we need to do is just keep attacking the king. We've got it on the back of the board. The knights are completely useless. I mean, totally and completely useless. They can't even move anywhere to come into the game. They would just get captured. You could go here, but you're not really going to have time for that. And so, yeah, it's just a terrible position, but we need to figure out how to get the bishops close to attack the king. So bishop to h6 not only attacks the rook, but more importantly, starts to close in on the king. All right, my opponent saved the rook, and I played, well, if you'd like to pause, what do you think I played here? There's actually two good moves. If you had a chance to look at that, I played bishop to f7 check, which is not quite the best move. The best move would have been bishop to g4, coming over this way with the bishop. And as an example, if black tries to bring a knight into the game, check, checkmate. Okay, look at that. Look at how powerful the rook-bishop combo is here, right, when the king is stuck on the back rank. So that's the threat. There's not really a way for black to stop that. And my idea was similar. I just didn't think about bishop g4. I just thought about the check first. Then I moved the bishop back, getting ready to come in this way. And there's really nothing for black to do. There's actually a cool little line here. If they play rook to g8 trying to stop the checkmate, what can you play here? If you had a chance to look at that, yes, you could take the rook, and yes, you would probably win that game, but watch this. Check. Brilliant move, by the way. Check. Checkmate. Super nice, right? So, yeah, nice little way to finish off the game, but what you really need to understand here is that bishops on an open board are so much better than knights. They're just so much better than knights. Now, like I said, it wasn't a fair fight because these knights are just so bad. They never really had a chance. But the game still illustrates the power of the bishops and why you do need to be careful just developing your bishops and trading for a knight without a really good reason to do so. Hope you guys learned something from this. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Stay sharp, play smart, and take care.